Hope you all are doing well. This is the Land of Enlightenment podcast, and I am your host, Oscar Duran. This episode of Land of Enlightenment is brought to you by Zendo. Zendo is a local coffee shop here in Albuquerque. You can check them out at zendocoffee.com. You can buy whole beans for order via email. You do have to have a grinder for grinding them up yourselves, or if you just want to support a local business, make sure to go to zendocoffee.com, buy some swag as well. You will get a ton of really great quality coffee, as well as awesome and really, really sweet merch. This episode is also brought to you by Lavender and Lee. Lavender and Lee is a custom jewelry shop. You can find them on Etsy, etsy.com/shop/lavender, A-N-D, Lee, Lee. So check them out. I think you can get a promo discount of 10% if you type in podcast 10 at the end of or when you're checking out. I hope you all enjoy and let me know what you think. Remember that I love you and that there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Bye. Yeah, you're fine, man. It's not a big deal. We're doing Zoom meetings, so it's this is what it is. This is what the world has come to. So thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, I've been trying to find a time to get you on here when you're in town, but you rarely are anymore. So it's difficult.
It's been a while since I've been there.
And you're also kind of you're a very humble guy. You're like, I don't know what I would bring to the table kind of thing. And you have a lot to bring to the table, Gabe. Let me tell you. So could you want to really quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Gabe Chavez. I'm a film worker in New York. I'm a filmmaker as well. I went to UNM. I went to school with Oscar. I had a couple classes with him. I grew up in New Mexico. I lived there for a while, and then I lived in LA. And then now I've lived in New York for the last 6 years.
Has it been 6 years in New York, man?
Yeah, 6 years in New York.
And how long were you in LA?
I was in LA for 2.
Okay, so time flies.
Yeah,
Time really flies, man. That's insane. But you went to grad school in LA, right?
yeah. I went to grad school in LA, so I studied filmmaking and I got my master's degree in directing there.
Okay.
So yeah.
And that's a lot of really cool stuff, man. I never heard the term film worker. It sounds sounds interesting. It sounds like it's kind of a street job.
Well, it's freelancing, and it's not. You have to find your own work, but it's not unlike prostitution, which is why I say film worker.
I was trying not. I wasn't sure if I was going to make the connection, but I appreciate you doing it for me.
Yeah, I'm not being derogatory to either one,
No,
but that's
yeah.
really what it is that when it comes to my industry or this industry, like I have to sell myself. Like why you should hire me above anybody else. So
how does, I guess I haven't been in that industry in a while, man. So how has it been finding work? Did you ever try to get work here, or what was your kind of your process post kind of UNM?
I was literally just talking to someone about this. I can't remember who I was talking to, but I was mentioning that I'm union. I have a union card in New Mexico.
Okay.
And so like all my jobs have to be union. Obviously, I can't do a non-union job. But the way that I get work really is through friends, like people that I've worked with before, people that I know, people that I've done other jobs with. Like if they have something or they know something's coming up and they refer me for that. Okay. Like I've tried getting work back in New Mexico every once in a while, but like most of them, when I talk to the unit production manager who's like, responsible for hiring department heads, when I do talk to unit production managers back home, it's always, can you work as a local? Meaning that I don't get paid distance rate or fringe benefits or anything like that. And it's fine. I don't mind. It's not like I'm not making a lot of money if I went to New Mexico, but I'd be making like $10 to $15 an hour less than New York. And like me being away from New York, it's not worth it. It doesn't equal out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's only when they agree to pay. Yeah. It's only when they agree to pay my New York rate that it's worth me leaving the state. Otherwise, I'm staying here and like spending time with my wife.
Yeah.
And like that's more beneficial to me is staying in New York
Yeah.
and earning that wage rather than leaving and earning less.
So I mean, it sounds like it's counterintuitive. It's just counterintuitive to come back here and work here then.
Yeah, it's because I have my union card in New Mexico, is that they can say that I'm a
Yeah.
local technically. So I'm like, okay.
Okay. And there's a lot of benefits for people working locally, right? They try to hire local as well. So,
Yeah, I mean that's part of the big thing too is with the
hmm
tax incentive there,
hmm
they have to hire a certain amount of like local crew.
yeah,
So, if they're hiring outside sources, like they don't qualify for the tax incentive if that happens enough. So,
that's interesting. I mean, and I don't think it's any kind of it wasn't any secret that working in the film industry, it kind of it's who you know, right? So getting work
yeah.
really it's a whole networking thing. It's who you know. um you've lived in LA, so you know this experience, and I've had the same experience kind of traveling and being there. Is that it's almost every conversation that you have with somebody is they're trying to figure out how can they network with you, and how can they quote unquote use you.
Yeah, I
Do you
mean
feel like
that
that
was
happens?
definitely more of the thing in LA than it is in New York. Like
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate that I get to work with friends. So like I never have
Mm.
to like go out and really,
Hmm.
like schmooze with other people that I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
usually 99% of my work comes through friends or friends of friends.
Hmm.
So like I've always been fortunate for that. But
Hmm.
in LA was super frustrating, and that's the reason that I moved out of LA so quickly. Is that
Yeah.
LA, everybody and their brother works in the film industry out there, and it's just so
Hmm.
oversaturated with people that I couldn't disconnect from it. Like I would go to a
Hmm.
bar and like meet some cool people and be like, hey, this is cool, man. And within 10 minutes, it's like, I work in the film industry. We should work together. And I'm like, I don't want to work. Like I just want to hang
Everyone,
out with people.
yeah, yeah. So it's not, you can't get away from it, and you feel like that's a necessary thing for you.
Yeah, I definitely have to disconnect. I have to feel like a part of my life is normal, since what I spend the majority of my week doing is completely abnormal and out of the ordinary for what anybody would consider normal.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
What are you? So I guess what you went to grad school. I mean, when you were doing your undergrad here at UNM, what was your goal? Was your goal always directing? Have you always where? And let's go back even further. Let's pause there. um, I mean, I have my own experiences, and I can just kind of unload. But what growing up here, have you always wanted to just kind of do film?
Yeah, I mean, I tell everybody this cheesy story because it's true. Is
What is it?
that when I
Yeah.
was when I was a kid, my parents raised me watching movies chronologically, and it was like it was very important to them that their kids have an appreciation for black and white movies. So when I was a
Oh,
kid, all I
okay.
watched was black and white movies, and then like
Huh.
they literally, I don't think that they meant to do it this way, but they started me off doing silent films. So like I watched silent films, and then I watched 30s and 40s and 50s, and
So it
I
was like
mean,
the history of cinema, pretty much.
basically. And I don't think that they realized that they were doing that. But I mean, I didn't see my first color movie until
Mhm.
I was 7, when I saw The Lion King in theaters, and I couldn't stop watching that. I wanted to go, and my mom took me like 12 or 14 times to see that movie. I feel
Yeah,
so bad for my mom having to see that movie so many times.
it's good.
But
It's
it's
Hamlet, man.
it's
Come
a
on.
great movie. It really is. It's still a great movie. But
Yeah.
like going taking her 7-year-old son to see it that many times, I can imagine, was kind of a pain.
Well,
But
I mean, if all you watch is, it's funny because there was, I can't remember what film I was watching with my kids, and I, having studied film, I do expose them to a lot of different stuff, and there was a portion of the film that was black and white. My daughter asked me, "Is it going to be this color the whole time?" and and I said to her, I was like, "No, it's just a part of the story. It's meant to kind of do this. The reason, of course, with the father that she had, I explained why they're using black and white for this portion of the film, and she's like,
right.
yeah, 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 whatever, dad. And but yeah. And then even my sister, she's like, she watches Disney movies because of all the color. So that's probably a big part of why you were so attracted to it. There was so much color,
So much color,
and
yeah.
it's just a
But I mean,
contrast to what you were used to.
yeah, but it really was what really struck me as wanting wanting to be a filmmaker is that PBS used to have this thing on Sunday nights, but it was like this old white guy sitting in a leather chair,
Yeah.
and he would like, introduce a movie and say like why it was significant to film history, and then they'd play the movie afterward. But it was always like some old white guy sitting in a chair in front of a fireplace, like giving you the history of the movie, and then they show you the movie.
Yeah.
But on one Sunday in particular, I saw The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yeah.
That's the the early silent film from the 20s, and that movie struck me so strongly that I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to be involved with making movies one day.
Okay.
And that was the genesis, so to speak, of where it all started. Was I knew that I wanted to make movies after I saw that.
What was it about the movies that resonated with you?
With that movie in particular, it was that I was so bothered by that movie, like it gave me nightmares.
Oh,
but it was just because of their use of imagery, because it is a silent film. You know, there's not a soundtrack necessarily, or like Foley effects or anything like that, or like slick editing or anything like that that's going to affect me, or visual effects. It was set design, acting, makeup, camera. That was it.
Yeah. It's. I mean, they didn't have a lot to work with back then. In comparison, right? Back, in comparison, they didn't have a lot.
I mean, there's movies like Metropolis that like really sort of defy description that movie was made in the 20s. But at the same time, like there's things like Lon Chaney's movie, The Man Who Laughs, or stuff like that. Or his movie Phantom of the Opera scared the shit out of me too when I was a kid. Like that really bothered me. And those movies, those really struck it for me, that I was just like, this is something I have to do. It was like I saw Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, The Man Who Laughs, Nosferatu made a huge impression on me, and Nosferatu is still like my favorite silent film.
So, is it? What about it is makes it? I mean, it's a classic, right? And I don't think a lot of people reference it and don't realize it, or know the imagery from it and don't realize what it is even. So
right. A lot of it has to do with the F.W. Murnau did such a great job with the structure of that movie and how he told the story. Okay. But it also has a lot to do with Max Schrenk's like performance as Count Orlov. Like he is frightening, and that's what I loved about it. Like, I couldn't believe that this guy was this scary without ever opening his mouth.
No, that makes absolute sense. I mean, there was I remember watching that, knowing about the film, and then watching it again as a film student. And then I think a lot of those classes really brought out because I mean, growing up watching these films, I think I had a lot of internal dialogue and going on and just kind of trying to figure out what the story was. And that's what hooked me. I think it was storytelling, right? Storytelling was what hooked me specifically. But being able to discuss it with other kind of like-minded people who are also interested in film, really kind of for that one specifically, Nosferatu, just the commentary, really understanding like that film was a cultural production created in a setting in a time that had commentary, and there was not only was there commentary from the director and from the writer and from everyone kind of contributing to the film, but there was also meaning making thereafter from the society that consumed it, right? So there's just so much, right?
I think that movie also made me sort of retrospectively look at why I like movies, because like that, every movie is a product of its time and of its generation and whatnot. But with that movie, there's like some very, very like overtly anti-Semitic things in it.
And no, absolutely. Like it's a reference to I remember specifically, I think it was James Stone. You remember James?
Yeah.
And he said it's a reference to anti-Semitism, and it was he was Jewish, right? He was an old Jewish man hoarding his wealth in a castle, right? And you're just like, when I heard that, it just blew rats and and it blew my mind, and I was like, what? And it was a German film, and once you understand that it was a German film, and it was creating this creating this narrative.
Hitler as the chancellor, and like that really, I mean, you can see it.
So. It was creating a narrative in that country, right? And you're just like, oh, Now it makes sense. People, and then it made them scary. So people were
Right.
scared of Jews because, not directly because of the film, but it was a lot of
Yeah, it
the
was just
reasoning behind it.
reinforcing it. I mean,
Yeah,
you have 10
yeah.
years of propaganda like that and images like that prior to even a guy showing up and saying it's immigrants' fault that this is happening, and then specifically shaping it toward Jews. Like it's
Hmm.
just a slow process, and that's how it got to where it was, but FW Murnau didn't help with that. So
No, and it doesn't. And to an extent, it doesn't take away from the fact that it was still, it was a controversial film, but it was a great, a good production. In
yeah,
hindsight, because it really captured that. It was a time capsule. It really
yeah,
captured that, right? And the production value for the time, it was really good. And at the end of the day, it was effective in doing what it was supposed to do. Unfortunately, that was not a good thing, but it was
right,
effective, right? Because you were
yeah,
scared even as a child in the 90s, right? Early
yeah.
90s, watching that and being like, even at that time, you were still having that feeling, you know?
Yeah, I knew
And
something was frightening, and like if once I learned what that movie was about and its background, it was like that changes a lot of the way I feel about this.
yeah, no, it does. It has I mean, has having studied film, having and making film kind of taken away some of that magic for you, and it doesn't make it difficult
Uh,
to watch a
you
film
know,
without.
it's really really hard. I find it's harder for people to enjoy watching movies with me. So, because
Yes,
I
yes.
walk out of a movie theater and I tear a movie apart, or I explain why a movie is great, and like it's
uh,
really difficult sometimes with
yeah.
friends because they're just like, you're such a killjoy, Gabe, like just enjoy the movie. And I'm like, I can't like I can't separate myself from it. Like I
That's who
have
you are.
to
It's
look
who
at
you
it.
are.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's who you are. You just happen to also study it and do it as a career because it's so much of who you are, right?
yeah. And
And
that's I've definitely had a lot of friends tell me that I'm a killjoy when it comes to movies.
but then you find that person, that friend that it just loves it as much as you do.
Yeah, every once
And
in a while.
yeah, you're just like, dude, let's sit down and discuss this, right?
Yeah.
And more recently, I've been making a lot of connections with people with writers,
Yeah,
whether it's screenplay or just kind of other short stories or just general kind of literature. But um, I think I've been connecting with them because they're also very good at dissecting stories.
yeah.
Maybe not cinematographically, whatever. It's still early for me, man. In 2 hours of hearing you.
Cinematically.
Cinematically, or no, I'm talking more photography, right?
Yeah,
Or just in general. But I think a big part of my connection with them is being able to kind of be like, oh, this is the development of this character and this, and what do you think this means, and why is this important, and oh, what is and it's I think for me specifically, it's important to be able to have that conversation with people and watch a film and debrief it and discuss it afterwards, because then it's
yeah,
just like it's just sitting in me and being like, oh my god, that was
yeah.
amazing,
I mean, it's great. I'm so thankful for my education because like it
Hmm.
gives me the ability to explain why I like something.
Hmm.
Because I've certainly seen that over the years, is that like a lot of people that love movies but they don't have that background in education,
Hmm.
they can't necessarily explain why something is good or why they liked it
Hmm.
and contextualize it amongst other movies that are like it. They just like, oh, it was a good movie, and it's like, it was a good movie. 5 words, like
Right. And
like
then
why was it a good movie? Did it remind you of something? Like what was it about, this movie that was great? What made it a great movie? And like a lot of that is lacking in society, especially with people without the
mhm,
film language. And it's unfortunate. I feel more
yeah,
and more and more that it's just getting further and further away, that
sure.
eventually it's going to get to the point where people are just reacting solely with like emojis when it comes to film. It's like,
Well, yeah, I had a discussion. I want to say maybe even a couple of years ago at this point on the podcast, and a guy he's a futurist, right? So a big and he just kind of looks at the world and he's like, this is the world's problems. And a big part of what he saw as a problem was that we oversimplify everything. Oversimplification and the lack or inability or lack of desire to have these in-depth conversations.
Right.
But it also comes down to like a lack of the of education on the jargon, right, to be able to
Right.
have these things. So it's a couple of different things that really kind of it comes down to, and it's the lack of education, it's a lack of different things, but
Right.
being making it more accessible also kind of leads us down this path, like you're saying, of it becoming um it's losing its magic, right? It's losing
Yeah.
in the emojis or bitmojis and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it comes down to it being a class thing,
Yeah.
at the very base of the whole thing. Not to say that we're I, I hated it. I hated being called this or being told that I was like sitting in my ivory tower dissecting everything and always
Yeah.
talking about having these discussions. But I'm very much about public scholarship and sharing education, right? And having these
Right.
discussion with people who may be having trouble saying like, I like this film or I don't like it. And I'm like, why? Why? Like, what's the feeling that you're having?
Right. But I mean,
And
I think a
forcing
big
people to
part of
have those
that,
conversations.
I think a big part of that is just viewing your privilege and like being able to actually, or your opportunity in order to go to school and like have that like
Yeah.
language and have that ability and be born into a life where you can have those
Yeah.
luxury. And that's definitely a big part of it.
A big part of the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, just being able to
Yeah.
like discuss it and like contextualize it, like a lot of that has to do with just privilege on its own. Like I
I
was
mean, we went
fortunate to be able
to
to go to college and like
I
and
mean, we went
study
to college
film.
and studied art, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of those things. It's like if you look throughout history, who goes. I mean, we in no way did I grow up rich, right? And
Yeah.
no way my parents are from Mexico. They immigrated to the U.S., but I was definitely, in comparison, a very privileged kid because I said I want to study film. I want to study
Yeah.
production. I want to study theory, and
Yeah.
all I want to read books and write. And that's such in comparison to some of my even cousins, that's a completely different lifestyle in life
Yeah.
that I had.
Absolutely.
So but it's a responsibility as well to be able to share that information, right?
Right.
um so doing all that and understanding, kind of going back a little bit, why you wanted to make film, you really these films had an influence on you. um going was going to UNM like your first choice to study film?
Honestly, I didn't start my college career like studying film. Like I started my college career at New Mexico Tech in Socorro, like wanting to
Oh,
study
really?
electrical engineering.
Oh, really?
So yeah,
I didn't know that.
I don't know if you know this about me or not, but like I was homeschooled. Like I was taken out of public school in second grade and I was homeschooled up until the age of 14.
Hmm.
And like it was because I was acting out a lot in public school, and like in the second grade I got kicked out because I got kicked out because they said that I was assaulting the student. But like the student had attacked my brother the day before and stabbed my brother
Hmm.
with a pencil. And
Okay.
so like I focused in on this kid and I beat him up and they kicked me out of public school because of that. And my mom was just
Oh.
like, you need to get it under control, like you're constantly in detention. And so her choice was to take me out and homeschool me. But I was homeschooled up until I was 14. And then like when I was 14, I started doing concurrent enrollment at the Career Enrichment Center on Mountain, right
Yeah.
by Albuquerque High.
Yeah.
I did an electrical engineering and robotics program there, and I did concurrent enrollment there along with TVI back when CNM was still called TVI.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
taking two college courses. I was taking like math and chemistry or something like that. Every semester I would take two college courses
Hmm.
up until I was 16. So like when I was 16, I took my GED because I couldn't take it anymore and I had to get out of there. And I decided that my mom really wanted me to go to college and study electrical engineering. So I went to UNM or not UNM. I went to New Mexico Tech and
Tech.
started
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And then I transferred to UNM after one semester. I was like, I can't do engineering. This isn't my style. I got to do something else. And so I went to UNM, and then eventually I found my way into the film program after changing my major like four times. So
So it wasn't, I mean, even though you wanted to study film, it wasn't necessarily something that
I mean,
you
I
followed through.
knew I wanted to do it immediately. That's what I wanted to go to college for. But my mom and dad were like very adamant that I get a degree for a job that I can actually have, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted me to, they were looking out for their kid. They didn't want me to be a starving artist. They wanted me to get a job that I could actually provide myself for, and so then when I told them that I was going to switch to film, it was like I don't think that my parents really realized that I could support myself with film up until honestly my wedding.
Yeah.
Because like when my wedding came around and they realized they weren't paying for anything, that like I was able to pay for everything,
Mm-hmm.
they knew for a second, well, at least he's doing well enough that he can pay for the wedding. Like that, I guess he's not going to starve to death.
Yeah.
So I think it was a really really late thing with my parents that they realized that this was actually a career that I could make money in.
Okay. Yeah. They tend to kind of lag sometimes.
Yeah, I
And
mean it's
it's
the arts. I don't blame them for that.
yeah. I don't either. I mean, my dad's still trying to, it's something I love, but I think it became something very difficult for me to do because I did have kids, so I couldn't necessarily leave to LA or New York.
Yeah,
And at that time, it was just kind of a difficult thing to kind of step out of New Mexico. So I got stuck here for a little while, and I ended up my career went a different way, right? So it's for better for worse, I still have that education, that knowledge, and I love it. It kind of led me to podcasting though, because to an extent it's production. So I mean, my
yeah,
parents get a joy
absolutely.
out of it. They're like, at least you're using your degree to an extent. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And an understanding of media really helps with public relations. So
Right.
it's kind of, yeah, it's a different situation. But yeah, man. And so how do you feel like you're fulfilling everything that you've been wanting to do? Like, what kind of work are you doing today?
You know, that's the tricky part for me right now, is that I was just talking to a friend about this, is that I still want to get back into directing. I haven't
Mm-hmm.
directed in a really long time. The last thing that I directed was I directed a music video out here
Hmm.
for like a local artist. But I want to get back into filmmaking, like making my own movies and whatnot. And that's very I've run into a lot of snags recently with like funding problems and stuff like that. Like stuff will start to get built up and start gaining momentum, and then like something will drop out, and I'm back to square one again.
Yeah.
And that's really frustrating for me.
Yeah.
What I do for my day job, so to speak, is that I work as a grip in the film industry.
Okay.
So I, I'm really, really good at it, and it's something that I could
Nice.
I could make a career out of. I really could. And
Okay.
I have made, for all intents and purposes, like I have made my career out of doing this for a while. And that's what I'm good at. But like I know
Yeah.
that I want to be a filmmaker. I know that that's where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And my last short that I did, it really put like a lot of wind under my wings, so to speak, because like
Okay.
yeah, I really swung for the fences, and I did something that was very personal to me.
Yeah.
It went to 35 film festivals worldwide, and like it won a
Nice.
bunch of awards. And like the
Yeah.
thing, the thing that I took most out of it is that my lead actress, who's the main character in the movie, like she won 4 acting awards in different film festivals around the world. And for
Mm.
me, that was better than me winning anything, because I was
Right.
just like, this is, I want, ultimately the film is through her eyes.
Yeah.
And so if the audience is connecting with her, that means something. They're connecting with something,
Yeah. No,
and
absolutely.
that
That makes
that
absolute
meant a
sense.
lot to me,
You were
because
able to you were able to help her even succeed, right?
yeah, and
Yeah.
that to me was like, it made me feel great about that I was trying to do something that was worthwhile.
Yeah.
So
That makes absolute sense, man. I mean, I think your career develops and unfolds in weird ways and you didn't expect it, right?
yeah,
And what you love, right? You're like, oh wow, like I actually do love doing this, and it just it's life is weird. Life is
yeah,
weird, right? And I mean, I don't know if you ever expected to be in New York City for this long or being and
no,
living there, but it's just one of those things where you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing now, and I'm still enjoying it. So
yeah.
that's the important thing, I guess.
I mean, I love my life. I really do. And
Yeah,
honestly, I could make a career doing this for the rest of my life, because I am really good at it, and it does
sure,
like
sure.
fulfill a lot of things in me that like
Yeah,
are important. It
yeah,
fulfills me as a person.
Yeah.
I keep saying this to my parents and everybody else, is that I still feel like I'm a kid being paid to play. You know, like I
Yeah.
don't feel like I'm going to a job.
Yeah.
And I don't feel, I feel like any day somebody's going to wake up that's my superior and is like, why are we paying this kid to do this? Like, he needs to leave. Like,
Yeah, yeah. No, I guess that makes sense, right? It's
yeah,
probably it's an imposter syndrome that a lot of people have, but like you're
yeah,
good at it and you're aware of the fact that you're good at it too. So,
yeah.
um really quick, I have a couple more things. Can you define what a grip is for people maybe who don't know?
Okay. So
Yeah.
a grip is a film technician that works behind the camera. The most common phrase that is used in the industry is that electricians throw a light and grips cut it, meaning that an electrician will put up a lamp outside of a window, but if you ever have seen a lamp going through a window, it looks like a lamp going through a window. It doesn't look like sunlight.
Hmm.
So a grip's job is to shape it and to soften it and cut it until it looks like daylight. So that's one part of my job. The other part
Hmm.
of my job is that anything to do with camera motion, whether it's a crane or a dolly move or a push or anything like that, anytime the camera is moving, that's my job. And the last thing that I do that a lot of people don't see is that I build everything above people's heads that the set and the lights
Oh,
and everything else hang on in the ceiling.
yeah.
So, you
Like,
know,
yeah.
that's an important thing too. And that's where engineering background in my brain comes into play, because like you have to think about, you know,
Yeah.
weight bearing and working load limits and stuff like that, because if you do your job wrong, you can kill somebody. And
Yeah,
you
that
know,
makes sense. That makes sense.
like
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
the closest that I've seen that happen in my time doing this is I saw a kid drop a 20-foot steel pipe out of a lift that was 60 feet in the air, and that weighs about 85 pounds. And so
Hmm.
when it falls past 30 feet, it starts accelerating because of gravity, right? So
Hmm.
by the time that it hit the ground, it was going probably about 70 to 80 miles an hour when it hit the ground. So when
Sheesh.
you have an 85-pound piece of steel falling through the sky that quickly, like, it could kill somebody.
Yeah.
And luckily it missed everybody on the ground that was down there. But you know, when it hit the concrete and it sparked, like, it was very scary. Like, I don't want to ever see something like that again, because it was like that could have been bad. Like, somebody
Hmm.
could have died doing that. But
Yeah.
that's part of my job too, is doing things that I need to know what I'm doing, or otherwise it could hurt
It could
somebody.
really hurt somebody. Yeah, and you
Yeah.
don't want that on your hand. That's awesome. I mean, it's awesome that you have that job. It's also it's a big responsibility on the set. So,
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it tickles this part of my brain that
hmm,
I love using, which is problem solving. It's constant problem solving, and you know, a lot of it has to do with engineering too. And that's the part of a grips job that people don't understand, is that a lot of engineering is involved with it that you don't necessarily know they're actually doing it.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot of work that goes into film. I mean, into any production, right? There's so many different jobs and so many little things that just kind of tie the whole thing together.
Yeah,
And
it's the one industry that ties all the other industries together, and that's what I really like about it, is that
yeah.
literally every other industry is combined into this industry
Oh
in
yeah,
one way
film.
or
I
another.
mean, like filmmaking, it involves a little bit of almost everything,
Yeah.
right? A little bit of everything.
But
So,
maybe dental work.
I mean, actors need their teeth, man.
Yeah, true.
The actors need their teeth. So to an extent, maybe indirectly, sure. But okay, so I guess last thing, how's it been in New York City with the current state of the world?
You know, it's for me and my wife, we're very fortunate that like we have our health,
Yeah,
and that my wife can work from home as a school teacher. She's a ninth grade English teacher.
yeah,
So like she's been able to do online classes and stuff like that. And I'm fortunate in the sense that my job pays me enough that I can take this time off and not have to worry about paying my mortgage or my bills or anything like that. I'm not worried about
yeah,
it coming back for at least 6 months. If it lasts longer than 6 months, I'm going to be in trouble. But you know,
yeah,
for the next 6 months, I can sit on my couch and I can enjoy my time and relax and take care of my house. But I mean, in terms of the city is just it's really quiet because everybody's inside,
yeah.
and it's kind of scary and disconcerting, because anytime that I go out for groceries or something like that, I see that there's nobody out and the streets are empty, and
Hmm.
that's something that I ever would have thought that I was seeing in New York ever.
I
like
mean,
at
you've
the
seen it in movies, right?
yeah, it's like it's like I Am Legend, but it's real. You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, hopefully it doesn't go all the way there.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, like in I Am Legend with like the Times Square sequence, like it is like that. There's like
Yeah.
three people wandering around in Times Square, and like some cars will drive by, but otherwise it's empty, and that's disconcerting to me because I'm used to so many people being around.
But yeah, I mean, it's always moving. Everything,
Yeah,
it's nonstop in New York City. So
right.
it's just one of those things where it's a different perspective to get, right? To get an
Yeah,
understanding of what's going on in different parts of the country. New York's such an
yeah,
epicenter for all this right now, and I mean, stay safe, man. You
yeah,
know, it's getting wild out there. So hopefully it doesn't last too long. Um, hopefully you get to jump back in and start making cool movies and
yeah.
helping out on those things. I know that what are people doing during this time? Sitting at home
Right,
and watching film, watching TV, and consuming these things. So
right.
it's a very important part of our lives.
Yeah,
It's getting these stories, these narratives, these things that people can relate to
right.
into our homes. So I mean, for one, I thank you for doing all this stuff because I think it's great. I'm living vicariously through you, and I love your Facebook posts about different films,
Thanks, man.
and it's always great, and it's you're doing the Lord's work, man.
Well, I
uh,
appreciate that. I really
yeah,
do because I feel like it's a part of society that people don't want to admit is essential. Is that
yeah,
people need
yeah,
entertainment. They really do.
yeah,
And like
yeah.
that's my job security is that people will always need entertainment.
Yeah, that's a fact, man. That's a fact, and I appreciate it, dude. And I definitely need entertainment. My kids need it, dude. They may not like the fact that like I bother them with questions about what they just watched or try to explain things, but at the end of the day, they're gonna get something out of it, right? And
Right.
they're enjoying it. So yeah, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you ever want to come back on and just maybe do a more in-depth, just dissect a film discussion,
Yeah.
let's do it. We can do kind of a pre-Oscar thing next year, or I don't know, something, dude. It'll be a good
Yeah.
time. It's fun. We can just go back and forth. It'll be good.
Yeah, I dig that. I would really like to, you know. I mean, this last Oscar season, I never could have predicted Parasite winning. That was something that I just could
Yeah.
not have predicted. So
What do you think of it? Did you like it?
I liked Parasite a lot. You know, I mean, it's a really really great movie. I don't want to downplay how great it is,
Yeah.
but it's everybody freaking out about it like it's the best thing since sliced bread. It's like, well, you haven't really been paying attention to Korean cinema then, you
Yeah.
know,
No.
like
No. I mean, it was great. Yeah. Exactly. It was
yeah.
great. But
But I
it
mean,
was.
I can name 10 other Korean movies that are just as good, if not better. And that's the thing. And everybody's freaking out about Parasite, and I'm like, okay, so go back and watch this backlog of 10 or 15 movies that I have, and then tell me how you still feel about
Be
Parasite.
like, oh, okay, in this context, right? But
Yeah.
you're a scholar,
I,
so you
I,
have the
I wouldn't
context,
I
right?
wouldn't go that far of saying that I'm a nerd. There's a difference.
Oh, geez, dude. Yeah, but yes, a nerd, a film nerd. That's good. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, have a good one. I appreciate you coming
Thank you.
on. I'm gonna hit stop and record, but we can just talk real briefly right after this.
Okay.
But thanks, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thank you guys.